11, verse 9 to the Rashi. Vayomer Hashem al Moshe, and God says to Moshe, Lo yishma alechem Paro. Pharaoh will not listen to you, Aman Rabod Moftai Be'eretz Mitzrayim, so that I can increase my wonders in the land of Egypt. Rashi says, Moftai is Shnayim. My wonders are plural. Makot, what are my, and Rabot is Shlosha 3. So there are 3 wonders more that Hashem is going to bring. What are they? Makat Bechorot, the destruction of the firstborn, Kriyat Yamsuf, the splitting of the sea, or Nayaret Mitzrayim, and to stir the Egyptians. Moshe Aaron asu et koam of Timai, Moses and Aaron made all of these wonders with Paro, before Pharaoh, Vayachazek Hashem et lev Paro, and God hardened the heart of Pharaoh, V'lo shilachas b'nei Yisrael me'artzo, and God did not send away the children of Israel from his land. Rashi says, this is already all written. So why does the Torah have to repeat this? This is already written by each of the wonders. The only reason why it's repeated here is to set it next to the following passage. So it's not really needed. Okay. So now the next verse, chapter 12, verse 1. Vayomer Hashem el Moshe vel Aaron. And God spoke to Moses and Aaron. Yes, please ask us. You're raising your hand.
Oh, I was waiting.
No, I'm not sure.
Yes.
Jerry, yes.
Yes. I thought that the Torah uses few words. And here we have the whole recitation a second time. Why? What is the reason for it?
Right. The Torah does use few words. And that's why Rashi has to tell us what the reason for it was. Rashi says the reason is to explain what's about to be told in the next verse, where Aaron is given special attention by God, and that's because he executed Hashem's commands exactly. And Moshe and Aaron did exactly what God told them to do. And for that reason, there's going to be a commentary on chapter 12, verse 1. So that's what Rashi is telling us. Hello, Dan.
Can I ask one question?
Yes, Ben.
Verse,
yes.
Hold on a second. I want to go back. It's a couple of verses earlier. When in verse 9, and it says, Hashem said to Moses, Pharaoh will not feed you in order that my marvels may be multiplied in the land of Egypt. So that strikes me as odd. I mean, if he's saying that he's going to cause Pharaoh to continue to harden his heart even more, so that Hashem's count gets better. You know, his miracle count gets better the more he prevents Pharaoh from giving in. So it seems kind of like, in general, we don't usually see him doing this, right? That he's going to make things worse in order that his number of miracles will be higher.
That's exactly what God says he's going to do. It's exactly the plan.
Have you seen that in other places?
No, this is the example. This is the only case.
Okay.
So that's the classic question. Why does God harden the heart of Pharaoh? That's the classic question. There's a lot of answers to it, but yeah, that's exactly what God is doing here. You're exactly right, Ben.
Sichon also.
Oh, so Sichon also is hardened?
Yeah.
Okay, so Rabbi Yosef gives another example of it in the Torah with Sichon.
They had to get across the river somehow. So Hashem, he didn't want the Moabites or the Ammonites to suffer, because he promised that we won't bother them. So,
right.
Sorry.
No, okay, very good point. Okay, so chapter 12, verse 1. Grab the Chumash, boys. There you go. Okay, Kobe, Moshe, Elon, sit right next to me. Chapter 12, verse 1. What page is it, Ben?
It's page 340.
3-4, right there, Moshe.
Oh, really? Have
No, that's a different book. That's not the Chumash, that's the Gemara.
Do you notice anything about me and Moshe?
Yeah.
What?
that you're beautiful boys.
What are we wearing? You can recognize these people?
Oh, beautiful. Love
These
it.
people, amazing, but it's not as good as you.
Yeah, beautiful. Okay, chapter 12, verse 1. Okay. Vayomer Hashem al Moshe, God said to Moshe and Aaron in the land of Egypt, saying, what pages did he go on?
340.
340, Moshe, open up.
Alrighty.
So God said to Moshe and Aaron in the land of Egypt, saying, Rashi says, why is this commandment given to Moshe and Aaron? Usually God just speaks to Moshe. And he says, because Aaron was involved in the miracles and he worked just as hard as Moses. Therefore, we're about to learn the first mitzvah that the Jewish people are given, the very first mitzvah. And because Aaron was involved in faithfully executing all of the miracles, the plagues, so therefore God gave him a special honor, and therefore he was given to Moses and to Aaron. Shekilolo in Moshe B'dibor, he was included with Moshe. So this is the very first commandment that's going to be given to the Jewish people, and therefore Aaron is given equal prominence. Vayomer be'eretz Mitzrayim, in the land of Egypt. Rashi says, chutz l'krach, they were given this commandment outside the city, meaning to say, it's obvious that he was speaking to them in the land of Egypt. Where else would he be speaking? So Rashi's highlighting that it was not in the city, but outside the city. Meaning to say, it was given in the countryside rather than the city. Maybe given in the city, says the verse. It says, when I will leave the city. Meaning to say that he didn't want to pray in the city. Moses wouldn't even pray in that city. This speech, this prophecy that God gave, for sure not. God refused to talk with Moses in the city because the city was filled with idols. And so therefore he only spoke to him outside of the city. Okay, so now we're introducing the very first mitzvah. What's the first mitzvah given to the Jewish people?
Peru.
That is a very good suggestion. No. Elon is saying, okay, it's a great question. That the mitzvah to be fruitful and multiply is the first commandment given to the world.
Is it Shabbos?
It's the first commandment given to the world is to be fruitful and multiply. But the first mitzvah given to the Jewish people, and that this is what makes us a Jewish people, is the mitzvah of Rosh Chodesh. So up until now, their whole world was given a commandment to be fruitful and multiply, but only Moses, but we were never given the mitzvah of as a Jewish people, because there was no Jewish people until now. And now we're going to be a Jewish people because we have this mitzvah. What makes us unique? Our calendar. Our calendar is what makes us special. That's this mitzvah of Rosh Chodesh. Yes.
What's the reason that Hashem made Nisan the first month, but in the calendar, but Elul the first?
Not El Tishrei.
The Tishrei the first actual.
Right. So that's a very good question. Why is Nisan the first month in the calendar, and Tishrei is the first month of the creation of the world? So that's a good question. Now, Nisan is, and the Nachmanides answered that question. It's a great question. We're not going to go into it now, but the point is to say that we measure our time not by the creation of the world, really, but by the creation of our destiny. Of when we realize what we have a mission, and that's to be the Jewish people. That's our mission. That's our mission. Okay, Moshe. So this is let's go chapter 12, verse 2. This month shall be for you the Rosh Chodashim, the first of all the months. Rishon hu lachem l'chadshei hashana. This will be the first for you of the months of the year. So this is the first mitzvah. Now let me just, even though it's not Rashi, let me just ask you, why do you think the first mitzvah is the mitzvah of Rosh Chodesh? Yeah, Jeff.
Time.
Yeah.
You're liberated from slavery.
Yeah.
The significance is time. It's the highlight that the calendar and time.
Slaves.
It's all about.
Slaves can't control their own time. Slaves can't control their own.
Big reward. It's like a reward almost.
Well, it's the opportunity. To create a life.
Yeah.
That isn't based on what Pharaoh says.
Yeah.
But what you determine to be your time.
All that separates us. All that separates us is time. What we do with our time, how we use our time. how we manage our time. That's what separates us and makes us holy. Use of our time. We have a very limited amount of time. The clock is ticking on us. We're all going to die soon. In the speck of the world, come on. Just saying, in the perspective of the world, our life is a blip. Is a blip. So the only way we could gain control of our future, of our existence, is how we manage our time, how we sanctify our time. If we could take a moment in the world, which is otherwise just an insignificant moment, and declare that this moment is now holy, then we have made good use of our time. That's the only possible way to do it. So, what does the verse say? This month shall be for you, Rosh Chodashim, the first of all months. It's the first for you of the months of the year. Rashi says, God showed Moses the moon in its newness. What does it mean, the moon in its newness? Do you know what that means, Elon?
When it's like full or when it's not full. Like the crescent, like the little slope, right?
Right, when just the moon, as it goes through its cycle of which we call a lunar month, it becomes a part where it's not visible, and then becomes a part where it starts to be visible. So he showed the part where it first started to be visible. And he says, oh, people are asking for soup, John.
We're on it right now.
You're on it? Are you going to add matzo balls to it? You sure you know how to do that?
No, I don't.
He says when the moon becomes new, or when it renews itself, that's when it will be for you the first of the month. The verse has to be taken by its literal meaning. God said this with regard to the month of Nisan. This should be for you the first of the order of the months. Shia Iyar Karoi Sheni and Sivan Shlishi. That Iyar is called the second month and Sivan the third month. So therefore, he's saying, God is telling him, what is he teaching us? What Elon just said, that Nisan will be the first of all the months. Now, this is a very, I always love this Rashi. He said, this month, whenever God says this, Rashi comments on it. Why was it saying this month? Moses didn't know what was this new moon. What did it look like? Moses didn't know what's the minimum amount that you needed to see in order to sanctify it. So God showed Moses the moon with his finger in the sky, and he said to him, when you see this, sanctify it. But how could he have shown him it? How could he have shown it to him at night? God only spoke to Moses during the day, as it says, God spoke to Moses during the day, during the day. So God said to this passage to him before sunset, and right when the sun set, he showed it to him with his finger. Now, obviously, Moshe, God does not have a finger. It's just being poetry. This is all poetry. God doesn't have a finger.
But Rabbi, he could have a finger, right? Could he make a finger?
Well, that's a whole question. Could God make something that doesn't exist? That can't. Could God make something that's impossible to make? So if God would have a finger, then it would be a limitation of God. If you want to understand all more of these questions, you could go to Rabbi Shaul's Wednesday night Mor Nevuchim class, which he discusses that in depth. But for now, we're just doing Rashi. Rashi very frequently will describe God, or I would say not infrequently, will describe God using anthropomorphic terminology. And it's not clear that he didn't actually believe it, but that's for a whole separate discussion. The that Rashi, it's not clear that Rashi,
That's because the Torah
not-
itself uses.
well, I'm just saying, it's not clear.
I mean, that's why he's okay to do it, because the Torah uses. Right,
Well, Rashi, so Rashi took, it seems that Rashi took these anthropomorphisms of the Torah literally, whereas Maimonides very strongly is against it. That's why when Maimonides says that anybody who says that God has a body or a physical form is going, it has no share in the world to come. Ravid, who was a great Provençal scholar, was a critic of Maimonides. He said, how can Maimonides say this when there are many who are greater than Maimonides who disagree? There are many who are greater and better than him who disagree with that. So that's a whole, we're getting off on a tangent here, but since it's Rashi here says it, but Rashi says, when it says God created man in the image of God, Rashi there says in his form. So Rashi seems to have taken it literally. Okay, that's now we're up to verse 3, chapter 12, verse 3. He says, Dabru al kol adat Yisrael. He says, God says to Moses, speak to the entire community of Israel, saying, B'asor chodesh hazeh, on the 10th day of this month, v'yikhu lahem ish, sela beit avot, sela bayit. Each person must take a lamb for his father's household, a lamb for his house. Can you imagine that? You have to take a lamb. So speak to the congregation of Israel. But is Aaron going to speak? Wasn't already said that Moses was supposed to speak? So what it means is that Moses and Aaron give honor to each other. And they would say to each other, teach me what we just heard from God. And the words would go out from both of them as though they were both speaking. They both spoke together. What a beautiful image. Moses and Aaron, brothers. And he says, speak to the congregation of Israel on the 10th day of this month. Dabru ayom Rosh Chodesh. They were told on the first day of the month that they should take this lamb, Shechu B'asor Chodesh, on the 10th day. Speak on the 10th day of this month. Rashi says, Pesach Mitzrayim Mekacho B'asor V'o Pesach Toros. Okay, we have to explain this so you understand this. There's a Pesach in Egypt and a Pesach for all future generations. What's the difference? What does it mean, a Pesach for Egypt and a Pesach for all future generations? So the Pesach refers to the Paschal lamb. What's the Paschal lamb? This was a sheep that they brought as a sacrifice. They had to bring that every year as a sacrifice. But when they brought it in Egypt the very first time, there were unique laws to the Egyptian Paschal sacrifice, which is totally different than all future generations. One of the differentiators was that in Egypt, they had to separate the lamb already on the 10th day of the month, tie it to their bedpost, and then wait till the 14th day. Whereas for all future generations, they did not have to do that. They didn't have to do that. So that was a clear distinction.
They smear the blood.
So very good, Moshe. Moshe, very proud of you. In Egypt, they had to, I wouldn't say schmear, but they had to spread the blood on the doorposts, where that was not the case for all future generations. You know, there are some people to this day who they're worried. I mean, you're gonna think I'm joking.
No, don't say people.
No, that's not what I was gonna say.
Okay.
You're going to think I'm joking, but I'm not. There are some people who are so worried that they're not going to be able to get a sheep when the Mashiach is going to come on the night before Pesach, and there'll be a run on sheep. They won't have a sheep. If they buy a sheep and they have it ready to go
For Mashiach.
Mashiach on the morning of Korban Pesach. On the morning.
So who does that? Like the Hasidic people?
Wow.
Like is it a
They have their lamb,
It's anything.
and then there's another guy.
I'm getting.
And then there's another guy who every year he brings because right now the mitzvah of Korban Pesach actually still applies. You don't need the Beit HaMikdash to bring the Korban Pesach. You don't need.
You can't bring a carbon.
No,
thought
you
so.
can bring the Korban Pesach today, and it's the Israeli army that prevents us from doing it. You could bring the Korban Pesach. You don't need the temple, and you don't. And even though everybody is ritually impure, if the majority of the people are in a state of ritual impurity, you can still bring the Korban in a state of impurity. So there is one rabbi in Israel. Every year he tries to smuggle onto the Temple Mount a little baby sheep to bring it. And they always catch him and they don't let him. It's all to do.
Yo,
But-
that's crazy.
Yeah.
Rabbi Rashi did that.
Rabbi Rashi tried to do it.
Achman?
But I know, and he's from Staten Island, the Staten Island guy.
Yeah, and he got arrested too.
He tried to bring it.
Oh, that is so
He
terrible.
invited me on it this year. I was like,
I did not do that, Rabbi.
What?
I don't even know why I never do that, Rabbi.
Why would they do it? They're believers.
I don't
They're believers. They want to bring the lamb.
know the.
Because technically speaking, there's no reason why we can't bring the lamb today. Except for the fact that it would probably cause,
to do it.
yes, it's a mitzvah.
But the Muslims are gonna kill you if it's not.
Why?
Because I don't know why the Muslims do it.
Well, I would say those people who are going,
Their religion. of-
no, those people who want to kill you, I don't think that this would be the distinction. They're not going, They're not gonna
hate
say-
us.
they're not gonna say, oh, we're not going to kill you because you brought this lamb.
Yeah.
I mean, it will probably inspire, but that's what they said before they moved the embassy to Jerusalem. They said, if you move the embassy to Jerusalem, it's going to cause World War III. They moved the embassy to Jerusalem, it didn't make any difference. So I'm not saying that we should do it, but I definitely am sympathetic to why this rabbi wants to do it, because he's saying it's a mitzvah. I had an idea one year that I never followed through with it, but I had an idea one year that I could easily bring the Paschal lamb in the following manner.
Okay.
But I could tell it to you, but you're gonna think I'm joking. I had this theory because the Torah says the rabbis understand that the holiness of the Temple Mount goes up; it never stops.
Oh, yeah.
So I had a theory that you could you could rent a helicopter, fly over the Temple Mount in a helicopter, and right when you get to the exact spot you need, slaughter the animal,
What?
and then sprinkle the blood down.
No.
It goes up forever.
Because it goes up forever. So that was the theory. What?
Why did
But then
Oh my.
they said that they don't like you flying over the Temple Mount.
You have to shoot you down with their RPGs.
Yeah.
That is insane.
That's a genius.
So, thank you.
It's
All
thinking
right,
out of the
so he
box.
says, so let's finish this verse. He says, and this month, take for everybody a celebrate vote. This month, celebrate vote, the lamb for each other's house. L'mishpacha achas, for each family. Haresha yumu Reuben, yachol sechol kukan tamalomar celebrate. So if there's a lot of people in your household, let's say you have a household with 20 kids, then you need more than one lamb, obviously. Okay, but what's the problem?
How many lambs do you need?
One lamb can feed 10 people.
10 people.
Wow. So you need 2 lambs for 20 people.
No, for the Paschal lamb, you can't.
But you only need
extend it to
kazait, no?
Oh.
It's got to be a minion.
Oh, am I wrong there, Rabbi Yosef?
I don't know if you're wrong. I'm just saying that you only need kazait, so.
The only thing you need to say, but I thought it was lamb.
It's like an egg, yeah.
Okay, Rabbi.
Or grape
I
meat.
don't know. I think one's on
Oh, you want me to get you some water?
I have your water.
Oh,
Oh.
I thought it was limited to 10, but I think I'm wrong. All right.
Anyway, when you said 20 kids, I actually thought about this a long time ago. If Rashi is correct that only 20% of them came out, there were a
Yeah.
ton of orphans and a ton of widows. Meaning that the men who didn't believe, they died, but their children probably,
Survived.
were
'Cause they were
adopted
pure.
by other, because they're not commanded by Moses. So like each family that did the Pesach lamb and believed probably brought in all the neighbors' kids who were orphans.
It's a very good point. Very good point. Okay, so maybe we should stop here to do the davening at this time. Let us stop, my friend, and let's daven.